Hello, everyone. Welcome to the fifth episode of AppSource Central. Here we talk with Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central ISVs and their apps on Microsoft AppSource. Today, I have a special guest. Each time I say this, that I remind myself every guest is special, but it means when I say special, there's something unique. And today, I will speak to my ex-manager, the people I used to work with, and the company I used to work for as well. I'm still working in the same country for a different company, and we'll talk about that, what that means. So we are somewhat a competitor, but what that means being a competitor in the world of AppSource will be one of the topics perhaps we'll talk. And today I have the pleasure of having Craig Barberini with me from Theta. Craig, thank you for joining. Thank you for taking the time for doing this. Can you please briefly introduce yourself and your company?
Sure. Thanks, Arat. Really appreciate the introduction. I work for Theta, which is a New Zealand-based and New Zealand-owned company. We've got four branches around New Zealand. The company was originally founded in 1995 and has grown to a team of 300 over the years. And we've been, I didn't start the practice. Jörg, our head of Dynamics 365, started the practice in about 2008. And we've grown to be a very large Business Central practice here in New Zealand. We've got over 40 people working with us. And so we've got a lot of experience, in building apps and obviously implementing them too.
Nice, nice. And so the Business Central practices, you said 2007, did you? So sorry, it's
That was
been
about 2008.
2008. Wow, okay,
Yeah,
that's 17 years. That's quite a long history as far as the product goes, almost.
yeah.
Can you talk about the practice itself? So, what kind of skills? Is there any domain knowledge that you guys possess, or can you give us a bit of insight about the practice itself and the skills and the distribution of the skills?
Sure. Our D365 practice is CE and Business Central, but our larger part of the business is still our Business Central practice. That's what we initially started. In terms of the skills, we got pretty strong skills in various areas, both functional and technical. So the industries we work in is a lot broader actually in New Zealand, but a lot of manufacturing, distribution. So with manufacturing and distribution, you always have warehousing and that, and we do a lot of work in the food industry. But in addition to that, and the type of projects that we do tend to be relatively complex. We do a lot of integration projects. So we've got a very strong technical team and a lot of people in our team from all over the world, as you know, and with many years of experience. And we tend to tackle the more complex projects, and we're pretty
Sure.
well, geared for doing that.
Great. Are you guys purely some of the questions I know the answers?
Yeah, no, no,
Working
I get
there,
that.
working there 3+ years. It's for the audience. So, are you guys purely product development, or are you guys project and doing project as well as product development as well?
Yeah, I mean, we are a VAR, so like many of the other partners, and we've actually been an ISV for a long time, even before AppSource. The philosophy we've always had. Jörg's driven that, and I've also driven that in my team. Is that although we do build custom solutions for our customers, we'd never wanted to reinvent the wheel. So we've always had the idea of saying if we would build something, we want to build something that's generic and reusable. So we never, so it was always the idea was that we'd avoid doing customization all the time and redoing the same work all the time. So, in the earlier days, we had a ClickView code generator, that we'd registered. We've also obviously since 2018 we've been working on AppSource apps and got
Hmm.
our first app into AppSource in 2020. But
Yep.
we're still mostly a VAR. So we're
Sure.
mostly doing services. Um,
Hmm.
and realistically, that's actually very beneficial because, we when we're going to be building apps, which we want our customers and people around the world to use, it's good to be actually, working with the customers and really being on the front line and really understanding what they
Yeah.
need.
Yeah.
So,
A partner. Yeah. A
yeah,
partner feedback will be different to customer feedback, right? They are the ones that they are using it. Can you
that's
talk
right.
talk a bit about the challenges and the pros and cons of having both projects and the product development team? So I would imagine, obviously, you want to be your products to be repeatable, and anything you do for multiple customers, you always think, should this be a product or should this go into the product? But if you build it for a customer and then you ship it to a customer, and the idea comes from the customer, do you have some sort of an agreement with the customer as well, like as if they are sponsoring it? So how can you talk through the pros and cons about having both projects and product development team?
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. So what, obviously, our customers are always got to come first. Those customers that are
Yeah,
live, if they have support, if they have or if we got a project, that's always going to come first. So although we've got a large team, we can't allocate that large team to product development, um, all the time. So that can be challenging to manage because we also want to make sure that we deliver on features on our new products. So it is a careful balance that we need to follow, which I think we've been pretty good at doing. In terms of building something for a customer and putting it into our product, it's very seldom that we would build something for our customer and then later want to put it into our product. Often we'll find that um, if we would be building something for a customer and we think, hey, this actually needs to go into a product, we would usually have a conversation with that customer and say, this is what we think we would rather do is enhance this solution with this capability. Um, so and in those scenarios, then those customers, the benefit they get out of that is they get a solution which they don't have the technical debt.
yeah,
We pick up most of the costs of that as well. So if we're putting it into our product, and ultimately it's a win-win for both. They get the solution they need, and they don't have to worry about maintaining it and ensuring that it remains compatible for future versions. But
yeah,
we'd never really take a customer solution and convert that to an app. So sometimes we
sure.
would decide, hey, we want something. If we would envisage a solution for our customer. We may even start building the app. Whether or not we get the product is a separate issue. So it depends on obviously capacity in that. Um, yeah.
No,
So
it's a great approach, having that conversation with the customer and showing them, even having some bearing the cost as well. So I think that's a great approach, having that open conversation with the customer, because many ISVs slash resellers, VARs, would go through the similar challenges, and having that open conversation with the customer would probably is the best way to address those challenges. And I think customers should see the benefit as well, because nobody wants to sponsor a feature and then see that in the product that's distributed worldwide. But that's
uh,
a fantastic approach, and I 100% understand. And
Yeah,
in terms of your
sorry if I could just say
sorry,
something else on that. It's not
of
it's not
course,
the only approach. I mean, that is an
yeah,
approach we have because we have customers and because
hmm,
we as we encounter new scenarios and we think, hey, this would be good for our product, that happens. But many of our products we actually build from scratch. So for example, I mean, our Excel importer product, which we'll talk a little bit later, was one that we actually I started building it back in 2016 as NAV started supporting events, and it was actually almost a well, me just testing it out and seeing what I could do with it and all of that. That was the one thing, and then that grew and grew as more and more people needed things. But our advanced land cost module was actually something that we invested very heavily into build because we wanted a solution that addressed the gaps that we saw in the market. So that was built before any of our customers came to us with any requirements. We knew there was a requirement for that. So while we do work with our customers and that helps us make our products better,
hmm,
we also do, look at what we feel is lacking, and that's where we often find a gap. And we also, an important principle that we've also tried to follow is we don't want to reinvent the world. We can only
Mhm.
write so many lines of code in our lifetime. Therefore, whenever we would have a requirement for a customer that's not met, we don't first go to the drawing board and decide what we can build. We first go to AppSource and see what's there. And that's the other side of our business in that, in terms of implementing solutions, and although we do custom development, wherever possible, for a long time, we've always tried to use ISV solutions.
Mhm.
So, when we started doing solutions for the food industry, we didn't want to go and build all of those things. We partnered with a company, that already had those capabilities. That's a model that Microsoft pushed for a long time, where they wanted partners to have industry experience and they wanted repeatability. They didn't want you to reinvent things all the time, and that is something we fully have embraced for many years now.
That's great. And that's a great summary. Thank you very much. In terms of your customer base,
Yes.
not talking about the local, obviously you have projects that you run locally, but your AppSource customer base, do you have customers in different continents? And being a partner based in New Zealand, do you find it challenging supporting them due to time zone differences and all?
Yes, I do. And actually, it is a challenge because, yeah, I mean, so we're the first ones in the world to wake up. Um, but we have partners all over the world. We have customers all over the world. So initially, when we entered the app source world, we were thinking, well, actually, we want to build things that could easily be installed by a customer, by a partner, whoever wanted them. And our model was, let's get our apps in there and let's try and make them easy to use. Let's
Mhm.
make sure that we've got, that people would be able to take up the apps easy, with guides and documentation. Um, but realistically, unless you're really speaking to our partner, users aren't always that comfortable just installing them. So you need to be there to support them. So it
Yeah.
is challenging because from New Zealand, we can do the US and North and South America because there's a good overlap, at least 4 hours of our day overlaps, and sometimes a bit more. That's pretty easy. And obviously, New Zealand and Australia, that's very easy to do. In Asia, we also got customers in Asia. Europe is challenging, and we often have to put in the hours, or we choose to put in the hours. I mean, we could also ask them to meet us in their evenings and that, but as we're the vendor, we choose to go at 10 o'clock at
Yeah.
night and meet
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
people, and
Sure.
that's just how it is.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, no, fair enough. Do you have direct customers downloading your apps as well, or
yes, we do.
would it be okay, or is it usually partner driven?
Funny enough, most of our customers for the Excel importer are
Hmm.
customer. They've gone in and installed their own apps. For the more complex ones, you're working with partners. Although, it's a mixture, but it's our
Yeah.
model. It has changed though. Although we did want anyone in the world to be able to install it, and we made it that could be possible, we also realize that that's not what's actually happening in practice. It's the partners
Mm.
that inform and guide the customers. And, the customers are busy. They don't have time to learn all these solutions and pick which one's right. They need someone to help them and guide them, and be able to say, yep, this is good, or no, that actually doesn't look really good at all. Then they need that help. So we've actually been really trying to build a partner base.
Hmm.
Rather than just go direct. But as it stands right now, anyone in the world can actually install our apps and use them.
Okay, and AppSource would be the perfect marketplace for them. Can you talk us through the? So you've been in AppSource for 7 years, you said. So quite a large amount
Well,
of
we
time.
started
Yeah.
working towards it in 2018.
2020. Sorry, five
Yeah,
years. Yeah.
but
So
2020 was
five
when we
years.
published our app. Yeah,
Great.
yeah.
Can you give your impression over the 5 years? Are you happy with its development and the direction it's going? Can you talk through about your overall view of AppSource?
Yes, I think, well, I mean, when we first started, there were under 1,000 apps. By the time we
Yeah.
published our first app, there were over 1,500 apps, if memory serves, and I could be wrong with numbers, yeah. And now there's well over 6,000 apps. So
Yes.
there's a lot of growth, and it's actually one of the things that why Business Central has always been so awesome. There was always not just the ability to change it, but the ability to reference really rich pre-built solutions. Like there's many that I've worked with over the years, and they were really good solutions built inside NAV, built inside Business Central. It's very, so yeah. So I think the whole way AppSource, really is a really good way of taking Business Central to the future, where you can easily access. In fact, it's a lot easier than it ever used to be, as you'll know.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think it's good in terms of the way the marketplace works in that. Um, I mean, the monetization
Yeah.
wasn't ideal because it didn't exist until about, what, 18 months ago, possibly 2 years ago. Um, and even now, it doesn't quite have all the features we need. So that's one of the things that took us long to get to AppSource
Okay.
because
Are you directly transactable in AppSource right now?
no, we are not.
No. Okay.
And that's because many of our apps are per tenant, so we don't do per
Hmm.
user pricing. So, because the nature of them just, it's not fair to charge if you've got 100 users, charge you more than if you've got 5 users, because you've often got the
You,
same users
yeah,
using them.
you're quite public with your prices. So in every app, there's a link that you can go to see the pricing model, and there's like 3, 4 different pricing models. So many of them, those SKUs are not supported right now in terms of the App Source transactability, and that
Yeah,
kind of justifies why you're not transactable in App
yeah.
Source. So yep, I get that. I'll go through your apps through the App Source a little bit. So when I look at your apps on AppSource, correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember I was saying 365 extensions and not Theta Systems Limited, but I see that has been changed. Now I say Theta Systems Limited. I might be wrong. So can you walk me through the difference between what is Theta Systems? I understand that's the company, but also where does 365 extensions branding sits? Can you talk me through that differentiation, please?
The main reason for the differentiation was that we didn't want to compete. We really wanted to work with partners, and we wanted them to feel comfortable using our apps. So it's around, you and I aren't working for the same company, but there's no reason why we can't use each other's apps for our customers because it's for the betterment of the products. I mean, for me, I don't feel in any region partners actually really need to compete against each other because there's so much competition already in the market with the other products that ideally in a perfect world we're not knocking at each other's customers' doors. We're actually going to people that are using other solutions that are not Business Central or not Microsoft based and changing them. So the reasoning for that branding really was around saying, look, we don't want to just put our name everywhere. So you'll see that our online help and all that, it doesn't refer to Theta, but refers to 365 extensions. The apps themselves, they are published by us, so it has our company name in that because we are one company. We're not having two separate, you know,
Yep, I understand.
companies.
That's a great explanation and really good points about the competition itself. Who are we competing against? Yes, we might be local competitors, but the real competition here is actually Business Central versus other products. And the more we can add value and find the best solution for our customers within Business Central, that can be with Theta extension or other extension that customers will get the best out of it, the more we'll have the upper hand against other applications, and that's where the real competition is. And I completely agree, and that's why we can have this podcast two local competitors. We're having this conversation because we're Team Business Central. No, that's how I see it, and I completely align with what you say. And if you don't mind, I will go and maybe one more comment as well. So would you say, like, yes, I remember our previous discussion, and you said something like, why can't we have Excel importer? Why can't we have Excel importer to be implemented in any New Zealand implementation? Right?
Yeah.
It's a quite neat tool. We'll talk about the details later. It's quite affordable. It solves a really it solves a real problem that's existing for almost each customer. And so, can you extend that to a New Zealand starter pack with apps like that? An Excel importer, one of them, and another app from another app from another partner where partners can collaborate. Is it too unrealistic to think, okay, for New Zealand customers, we think these are the best apps for you to kickstart your project, and then obviously the customer will have the ability to pick and choose because one might fit their business and the others they might not need. So if they're not making really file-based integration, they're not using Excel, maybe they don't need that, but they might need other ones. Do you see some sort of a starter pack of apps that is dedicated to New Zealand implementations? Is it too unrealistic to think to imagine that kind of a collaboration? I might
Um,
be talking completely
no,
complete nonsense here
I'd
as well.
love to do that. I mean, realistically, there's no value in every partner going and building their own banking integration and their own this and their own that. So,
Yeah.
right now, for example, New Zealand doesn't have one, and there are companies that may or may not be building one, but they're certainly not available right now. And
Mhm.
it would be great that if there was one already, we'd be using it. We wouldn't be trying to build our own. And I'm not saying that we are actually, because there are other people that will probably be doing it, but I'm using that as an example. So a
Yeah.
lot of the apps though that we have as well, we have them because our first Business Central customer in New Zealand, we had about a few days after it was released. So when we wanted to get the license for the customer, they actually had to open up the SKU in Redmond. That's how early we were into
Yeah.
the game.
Okay.
So, we needed the functionality. And so we did build stuff. A lot of the stuff carried over from what we had built from, older versions. So we did have a lot of Cal, extent, well, at the time it was solutions
Yes.
that we migrated over. Um, but as we stand now, when we need to solve a problem, we go to AppSource. We don't say, "Cool, I've got a team of developers and they got nothing to do." Because guess what? They're always busy, and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
they've always got something to do. So the
And yeah,
reality is,
fair
we
enough.
can
Yeah.
if we take a pre-built solution that's got referenceability, that's got documentation, you know, our time to value is so much less.
Absolutely, and that's one of the ideas how this this podcast has been born as well. It was looking for an app rather than because it born with an idea of they asked me an estimation, a development estimation in a sense, and I said rather than doing this, let's go to the subject matter experts. Let's find those people that their apps that they built over years and that comes with warranty. It's already proven by the market. Let's plug and play that one. Yeah, so I want to go through your apps a little bit. So when I open up the App Source and search a filter Theta and product Business Central, obviously, I have Excel importer and the first and yeah, my understanding is it has the most ratings and the most reviews, so that's why I think it comes first. We will talk about that in detail after going through all your apps. But before that, Excel Importer also kind of a special app, being on the very first page of AppSource. So if anyone opens AppSource, it will always be there, right? That's it's not the case because I'm in New Zealand, right? So it's the case I think for anyone.
That's right. That is
So how
right.
did you guys manage that?
It's actually because of the sheer amount of downloads that we get for that app. So it's a
Okay.
very popular app.
Hmm.
That's what we believe, because we're not sure, because if I look at some of the other apps, some of the apps that are in the first page, like document capture, and that, they're very popular. Some of them, they
Yeah.
don't seem like they're common, so I'm not too sure what it is, but we definitely think it's based on the number of downloads, because we can obviously see how many apps get downloaded and so on. Not all of those though convert to a subscription, because sometimes they get downloaded, but um, they don't actually use them. So you often
Mm.
have people browsing and they don't follow through. So, and that's often because you probably find the people that are searching for it don't always have the permissions,
Mm.
to actually do it. That's what I think it could be. Um,
Okay.
but definitely in terms of why it's always there, it's because of the number of downloads that we get.
Okay, no, that makes sense. So all your apps has free trials except one, that is the subscription management. They need to contact you for that one. So that's good that they have free trials. So we'll talk about the Excel importer, and definitely I can see the benefit having it in the first page. So you have after Excel importer, you have administration tools. I think this is quite a common tool in terms of partners built
Mm.
for partners. It gives some extra ability to users or partners to manipulate data and that sort of things. You can find and replace data. You can bulk update data, and that sort of administration tools that it provides you. Subscription management, again, it's a subscription management. It's your transactability for AppSource. Basically, that's what you guys are using, right?
Yes, it is, but it's listed there as a contact me because it was actually for publishers. So before
Mm.
so why it took us 18 months to get into AppSource, we already had an app on day one to release, but we didn't have any monetization. We didn't have any way to do that. We didn't have any way to control, to manage that. And we said, okay, cool, we need to build something for that. And then concurrently to that, we had to do our automated testing and all of that. So there were some learnings there, but we put a lot of effort into building this monetization, and it was done in such a way that partners would actually be able to use that to do their own monetization without, we wouldn't be a party to that. It would be through their own Stripe, but using their app. So basically, we
Mhm.
built that as tools that a publisher could use to monetize their apps. So that's why that one's different, because we need to help you with that.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep, that's good. It's not something they can onboard themselves, so they need help with the implementation. So that's why it makes sense to have it as a contact me. Then there is Australia, New Zealand Accelerator. So this accelerator for Dynamics 365 Business Central, including banking and document. So this is a pack of a, a local financial functionalities kind of a thing, right? Uh,
Yes, it's
yeah.
basically it's our banking, so we can do EFTs and import
Hmm.
statements and all that out of the box, and our document templates that it's actually got a lot of capabilities around the documents, and that where you can do a lot of configuration. So
Mhm.
if we empower our customers to do Word reports and all of that, but they need custom fields and whatever, it's actually got tooling in there for them to define those fields so that they actually don't need to do any extensions on your invoices and credit notes and so on,
Mhm.
to do that.
That's great because just today I talked with another ISV and we talked about how expensive can it be to change reports. So any customization to reports can be quite development heavy, and having it more configurable, it's always a cost saving for the customers. Then there's dual unit of measure. Okay, this is something widely used in food industry, is it?
It is food mostly, but we didn't call it catch weight. And here's an
Mhm.
example of, we went to the app source to see what could we find. There was
Yeah,
nothing available at the time. By the time we released this, there was already then one other app available doing the same thing, but we'd
I
already
see.
built it. But it
Mhm.
is used commonly in food, but it's actually used in other industries. I've got a customer in Asia. They're using it for jewelry, because every
Mm.
diamond's not exactly the same weight, and
Okay.
that's the use. It's where you've got a random association between two units of measure. So very
Mm.
common in food, but you have it in steel, you have it in jewelry, you have it in wood. So there's quite a few scenarios where you can use it. So we didn't tie it to this is not a food solution, although food
Yes.
companies use it.
Yep. Got it. Got it. Great explanation. Then you have Integration Hub. Integrate Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central with any system. So this is kind of a generic connector, right? So you can connect with many systems with the help of data exchange definitions and workflows that will remove the need remove the need of having third-party connectors, kind of a thing. Yeah.
That's right. And depending on
Mhm.
what your skills and capabilities are, you can either just use Integration Hub, or you can use
Mhm.
that coupled with Azure Integration Services or something similar to do the orchestration. But ultimately, we provide a single API to handle
Mhm.
messaging between systems, and usually with file based, but it's not exclusively file based. It can be API based as well. Um,
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. I think this is also one of the common solutions that you see in the app source. I might be wrong, because I see this. This is a very common challenge. Obviously,
Yes.
integrating Business Central to third parties, it's always going to be a need, and it's a growing need. And having something generic to help with end users and partners, it's always great. Granted. And then you have the advanced landed cost. So this is the app that you referred previously, saying it came from a need of seeing a gap in the product, right?
Yeah.
So this is not customer driven. Can you talk us through that very briefly?
Well, what it comes down is it's a need in countries like New Zealand where we do a lot of importing, and you get costs. Things are ordered way in advance, and often we can actually have some idea of what those costs would be because we get prices from our freight vendors and so on. So the idea of the advanced limit cost was we wanted something that would automate that costing for us as much as possible. So
Hmm.
it obviously leverages the item charges that Business Central has. One of our policies will always be we're not going to change things like costing and all that. So it will always slot into that and follow those patterns that are necessary. But what the one differentiator of this product was we wanted something that could actually um, estimate the costs at time of placing an order. We did not want to have to
Okay.
wait till the end because it's once you've got all the costs, I can tell you how much it costs, but that wasn't the
Yeah.
idea. The idea was at time of placing the order, if I know that, based on things I know that are coming, like increases in freight or some surcharges that are kicking in, I've got templates that define that are price based, that are not per item, but more at a much higher level. But they can say, as I create an order or link an order with another order on the same shipment, it can actually take the costs that we're anticipating for that shipment and
Hmm.
distribute it automatically. And on the order, we can actually see, yes, we may be paying a certain value for this product from their source, but we're
Hmm.
also going to have other landed costs such as duty, freight, and so on. And that's what the value is going to be. But by knowing at
Yeah.
the time of the purchase order, it allows you to first do better cash flow planning. And second, if you need to think about pricing with your customers, you don't just change it overnight. So it gives you more time to do that and consider possible consequences of that. Um, yeah,
Sure. Sounds like advanced landed cost app itself can be a topic of another episode. I understand it's quite feature rich and there's quite to cover in there as well. Then there is NZBN integration. This NZBN is New Zealand business number. So integrate Business Central to NZBN to retrieve company data for your customers and vendors. Then you have advanced integration with Dataverse. So it enhanced capabilities specifically designed for complex integration scenarios. So it comes with some additional features to Dataverse integration. And then you have the advanced bank reconciliation. Increase accuracy and reduce processing time when doing bank reconciliations. This is also something perhaps we can dive quite deep in the further episodes, but I'm conscious about the time as well. And I want to talk about Excel Importer. So I want to go back to Excel Importer, the app that we're gonna dive into. So Excel Importer, I even remember working very briefly in in this project as well. I remember you didn't involve me a lot in the Excel importer, and I think that's why it's flying and so successful right now.
no, that's why it took us 2 years to get to AppSource.
Okay, guilty.
No, 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 no. It's because I didn't
No,
involve you.
I didn't remember. Okay, I'll take it as a
It would have
compliment.
it would have been there sooner if I would have involved you.
Okay, all right. Great. I'll put this as a what they call as a reel, like a short. Okay, no, that's great. So let's dive into the Excel importer. One thing I really liked is the documentation. So if people go to under the details and support, the support will lead you to kind of a contact us page, so you can put your message and send. And then the help is where you have the proper documentation. So the documentation not only gives you um, a very extensive way of explaining how it works. It also gives you use cases. It provides also the it also mentions the business value for each import. And there's also a technical part too, which I really enjoyed. So Excel importer, it's obviously having Business Central being a Microsoft product, we have seamless integration with Excel,
Hmm.
right? And so that's out of the box. So what can, in a nutshell, Excel importer can do that we cannot do or do better that we cannot do in Business Central out of the box? Because this is not like a new, you're not closing a gap, you're enhancing an existing feature. So can you talk us through those enhancements? So
Sure.
what is the upsides of Excel importer app?
Sure. Well, I think the key driver of the app was that we wanted to give something that can be given to a user, where you didn't have to tell them, "Oh, don't do that because you can break this, and don't do this because you can do that." So that was a key thing. I must be able to give an app to a user, and they should not be able to misuse it and cause damage to the system. So, so if I talk about the options that you have in Business Central, you have Edit in Excel. Edit in Excel is good in that it would prevent that. But it's not available everywhere, unfortunately.
Mm.
Um, and you have config packages, and that's very generic. You can bring data into any table, and you can do whatever you want with it. And that's why it's so bad. It's good, but it's an implementation tool. It's not an end user tool. You can give it to a power user, but you can't give it to, just a normal user who's more focused on doing their job than being an IT professional. And then you have the data exchange, which is also pretty flexible, but you got your drawbacks. So if I look at it, if I look at the different ones, I think we can agree that config packages is very flexible in that you can choose, you can access any table, but it's not flexible in the format. It has to
Mm.
be in a certain format. And if we tell our users that they first have to change the format of a file, then they're going to write these complex macros that potentially going to make errors. Or when that person moves on and the new person comes in, they've got to now learn a macro so that they can use the tool. So that's not a way to go. We don't want people changing the source. And the reality is even today, with a lot of sophistication, we get files that we have to do something with. Now, if I use Edit in Excel, I have to transform the file. I can't just use a CSV file and throw it in. And if I use a data exchange, I can probably map it to a CSV file. I can't use an Excel file. I can't, out of the box with the data exchange, I can't handle a fixed length file. And also, the data exchange doesn't support, sometimes you still get files that have different record types in them. So you'll have a header record, and that's got, let's say, if we just think of a sales invoice, it's got the header information of a sales invoice, and then you've got the lines about items and the prices and all of that, and then you've got the next record. And Data Exchange actually can't handle that natively. You have to do customization for that. So the Excel importer, the idea was give the user a tool that's available where they need it. So in the page where they would import it, and it's configurable, so it can support a whole bunch of things. And the key design consideration that was that they don't need to change their file. So whatever file they get, we import it. And that's really, I think, one of the key differentiators. I mean, on top
Great.
of
And
that,
you said give user a tool. So that means the onboarding and understanding of the app itself, it's quite easy. So for an end user, you go in, you download the app, and you kind of start using. And if you have any doubts, there's documentation. So you don't really need a partner to hold hand or yourself to guide them through maybe in the initial stage. But it is it's an easy enough app. It's easy to understand app for users to onboard themselves. That's what I'm understanding from what you're saying.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Mhm.
And in
Okay.
addition to that, it's also got a whole bunch of, uh, although it's generic, the reason why we don't just do every table, the tooling underneath it is actually very generic. But ultimately,
Mm.
because we want it to be a tool for the user, we don't want them to think how a file must look to import it. So for example, if you've got a sales document that you want to import, well, we know that that's two tables. It's three if you're going to include tracking information, which we do. They don't have to think about that. And we've got rules built in which allow them to group lines together. That's how we determine how to create a document and so on. So all of that's been built into the tool, but it's also configurable so people can change
Mhm.
it. And because we're taking files that usually come from a different system, it could be the transporter's invoice that they're sending us for the freight for the month. They may have data that's not meaningful to us, but we can map it. So we've got mapping tools, we've got
Mm-hmm.
transformation, we use the standard
Mm-hmm.
transformations as well. So we've got all of those types of things. And again, always being, I want to take that file, I want to import it, don't want to have to
Yeah.
transform it.
Yeah, and the first time you use it, you put whatever the file you receive it, and it helps you create a template as well, right? It lists all the files, all the fields, all the columns in Excel, and then it gives you the ability to map to the existing field. And from then on, you can create a template. And next time, the same file comes, and you use the template that you created for the initial time, and it's easy enough to import through that template.
Yes, and
So the idea is you receive the file, you don't change it, because you're probably from your vendors who receive the same file in the same format. And because you have a template, you configured your template, you put your transformation rules, you did your mapping at the first time, you just import it with quite seamlessly, right?
yes,
So that's basically the idea.
that's
Okay,
right.
great. So when I look at the pricing, it's public. So you have, for this one, you have the business plan and the premium plan,
Mm-hmm.
and they both come monthly and annually options. And when you get the annually, it's a month free,
Yes.
right? So you get a month free. So that's great. The key differences is, and there's a really nice metrics that you can see what's included in business and what's included in premium. So it lists all the pages that you can import or cannot import and the functionalities that you can or cannot import. So one of the things in this app I want to talk about is the extensibility.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the extensibility, if someone wants to add their own, I don't know, import types and that sort of stuff, you have a really nice documentation under in the 365extension.com, and from then on you can find the Excel importer. So you even see all the functions, the AL code that gives you the full understanding of how those implemented, and gives you code snippets of how you can extend the code. So I think that's very thoughtful, and also make it easier for other partners to extend the app. And I think that's one of the uh, what can I say? That's one of the common needs. But we have technical validation. We have other validations when we go app source, but I think we need that sort of an internal validations as well before we go to app source. Your app's extensibility for others to extend your app, right? Because no business 100% fit that app. It might solve 90%, 95%, I don't know, but there's that uniqueness about them. The app should be flexible enough for other partners to change that behavior. So that's my hats off. So that's great to see in terms of the documentation. So what else? What else you want to talk about Excel Importer? So what makes Excel Importer different than other kind of file-based imports, and especially the Excel ones?
Well, I think the main thing is around the flexibility. Flexibility, the
Mm.
performance is pretty good. It does use the underlying tooling in BC, so we do just use the Excel buffer to actually import the file. So we're all around processing that. But although we use the Excel import buffer, we also, obviously, you can't use that for text files. So we do have some smarts there, but we process that all. It goes through the same process, even though we have different ways of reading in the file. What's good about it is it covers a lot of different scenarios, and just looking at how people are using it around the world, I just feel that it actually saves a lot of time. There's a lot of in many cases, people are moving from NAV or from another system, but very commonly NAV, where they've had some custom import written, data ports, XML ports and whatever, and or a very rigid, import from Excel where it's got fixed columns and all of that. And they're looking for something that's flexible, and they end up replacing all of that just with Excel importer. We've got a lot of nice features that really talk to volume. So if you got customers in there, some of the problems we solve are things like if you got customers and they've got thousands of invoices or even hundreds of invoices and they don't pay all of them and they part pay some of them, how do you reconcile that? How do you apply that and all of that? So that's very manual. And we've used the tool to help with things like that and do those things. And it really adds a lot of value, saves a lot of people a lot of time. Most recently, we've been focused on making it easier. So the way we make the templates, you can do it visually on screen. So you upload the file and you can see the data as you map the columns. And we've even introduced Copilot. In fact, Excel Importer, when Microsoft had the hackathon last year, we joined that. And we selected Excel Importer. We chose some other apps and we said, well, what did we think we could do that was useful with AI? And we decided to use Excel Importer to help with the mapping of the files. So you can actually use Copilot for that. And then what we've done is taken a step further and we said, cool, but people don't really want to do things manually either. They also want to automate it. And people are getting smarter. And also, if a partner is doing stuff for their customer and their customer does want it automatically, we're saying if you're getting a file, if that is what you're getting, and it almost always is the case, then you should have something that processes that. And why would you write your own tool to do that if there's one that already does it? So we've actually created a file importer API. So you can actually use Power Automate or another service to push directly to the file to Business Central, and it has a way of understanding that file, what it's for. And
that comes with the premium plan, right?
That's right. That's right. And then I worked with another one of my previous colleagues who's based in the UK now. He needed to do an integration for one of his customers. And they were more comfortable using AL, to do any type of automation. They had a service that could handle the FTP because they needed to consume FTP files from the FTP service. And they built an integration using that file importer API, but triggering everything with AL. So where AL fetches the files and, it handles that, but it used all of, the smart sets in Excel importer. And they were so happy that they did that because although they felt, well, they only had to do they had to do like invoices and they had to do GL and all of that. And they felt initially, they thought, we could also build that. In the end, when they built it and they started working with their customer and doing the UAT, then the customer started not changing things, but they started saying, this sometimes happens and that sometimes happens. So then, it's the things that happen always. No one's trying to move the goalposts, but somehow they move. Somehow they got to handle negative invoices and positive invoices, and you can't post a negative invoice. But Excel Importer's got all of these things built in. So they built the tool. They used Excel Importer to do their sales invoices, and it was general journals, but they did it generically. So now what they're actually doing is it solved the integration problem. It's an organization with 33 companies. They solved the integration problem. They hadn't solved how will I take on these companies because they got to do opening balance for all these companies. So how do you do that? So they're using the integration they built to orchestrate the take-on of the companies. And Excel Importers do it because Excel Importer does everything for take-on. Does your GL, does your customers, does your vendors, items, sales, purchaser, you name it. It does all of it. It does customers, vendors. So what they're doing is their integration was built to read from FTP. So they're great. They're directing it to an FTP server, which has the customers, their vendors, their GL, everything, and they're doing the take on like that. So instead of having to go into each company and do it manually or find some other way to do it, they're just dropping the files that they need to in a certain place, and that integration understands where to deliver the file to.
That's great. Well, this scenario and more you can see, not this scenario, but some scenarios like this you can see in the documentation as well. I feel like I should reach out to this people and perhaps have an episode with those guys as well. It seems like an interesting case. Thank you for sharing.
Yes.
Can you talk us through a bit about your technical aspects of the practice? How do you take care of your reps? So your DevOps, what are the tools you guys are using to build and maintain your apps?
So right now we're using DevOps as our repos, but we actually have a project in flight at the moment. So nearing the end, we are going to migrate everything over to GitHub, and we're going to be using al.go for our CI/CD process. So at the moment,
That's good.
we don't have a very formal CI/CD process. We do have a lot of discipline in place, and we do,
Hmm.
every pull request is reviewed. We have automated tests and all that, but we don't have the CI/CD in place, and we are moving to that model right now.
Great. And Algo for GitHub will come with built-in all these built-in CI/CD features that maintain and developed by Microsoft. And that's the tool what Microsoft uses to for their internal operations, developing Business Central. And yep, I can see why some partners might move to Algo for GitHub. And it's a free tool, right? As long as your repo is in GitHub. Yep, that's great. So you mentioned you guys have a code review, so every code going in there. Do you need like tests for each pull request, or does it really depends on the feature itself that's been in the pull request?
The nature of it. I mean, so the
Mm.
reality is automated testing can be quite expensive. So we do try to have cover for the automated test because it costs you in the long run if you don't have it. So, but it depends on the nature of the change as to whether or not we're
Fair
going
enough.
to
Yeah,
enforce that there's a test because it's not always that type of a change. It's not a high risk change.
sure.
But we do, I mean, we do look at our testing and and improve it over time. One key thing is if we do encounter issues that we missed somehow and it does hit there, that's always a good case to say we should have a test that picks up that type of scenario.
Yeah, yep. That makes sense. And in terms of the cost, I understand many partners and ISPs they go through the same challenge of automated tests being expensive, and that's why Microsoft ship this tool, page scripting, to help with the cost, so that you can offload it to the clients a little bit and have their tests running in your pipelines. And what is the uptake of page scripting? Have you guys been able to use it, or have your customers use it? It's yeah. How what are your views and uptake on the base scripting tool so far?
I think it's awesome, and
Hmm.
we are training our customers to use it. And as we're doing projects, we're saying, while you're doing your UAT, think of repeatable scenarios that you'd want to test in a year's time or 6 months' time when we do a major upgrade, so that you don't have to do all of this testing again.
Hmm.
So just as a starting point, let's get that in place. So we do train them. And to be honest, I've even used it while building the app, to test scenarios and that because, it gets a bit
Right.
boring doing 20 steps if that's what you had to do. Not Excel
Yeah.
importer, but, so it's
Yeah.
very useful. We haven't used it for automated testing per se, and it's nice that you
Hmm.
can now run it from your pipeline. So we haven't really used that.
Hmm.
That might change now as we move to AL.go, and that will be for all our AppSource apps and our PTEs. Then it may well be that we start adopting that too.
Sure. Yep. Great stuff. I can jump onto the another topic that I want to wrap it up slowly.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about a bit about collaboration. So there was at one point you said we looked for an app, we couldn't find it, we built it, but by the time we push it to AppSource, there was this app.
Mhm.
So that kind of I know it's difficult to answer this one. It does it the lack of collaboration here. If you have a bit of visibility, I don't know how, or a better collaboration, that you might have spent your time, you might have invested in another area that will close another gap in the product, and it will be beneficial for the wider business central community. So this goes the collaboration, but this goes between ISVs and you and Microsoft. So what are your views on the collaboration, and how can we avoid these kind of situations?
Well, I think the strength of Business Central has been when you go to a Business Central conference, everyone shares their knowledge and their learnings and all that. And if you fully embrace that, then we should be always sharing that. And
Hmm.
to that end, we should be open about what we've done and be willing to share that experience. As far as the apps and that are concerned, I think that was the main thing that I said is that I don't want um, other companies that do the same thing as us to not want to use our apps because we're their competitor. Because
Hmm.
at the end of the day, we're an ethical business, and we would want to use their apps if they have solutions that solve the problems we're trying to solve. So
Hmm.
and if we work like that, it's actually in the interest of the customer. We're going to deliver them more cost-effective solutions. So for me, the collaboration is how we actually win against the other partners, is because we have such good solutions.
Okay, that's a
So
great
when
way
I
of
say win
seeing it.
against other partners,
And
I meant other products.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And okay, so moving forward, is there any cool features you guys are working on? A new app or a new feature in an existing app, or any new trending technologies you guys are embracing or investing in right now?
Yes. Well, I mean, we also, well, in the Business Central world, we are working on several apps at the moment that we'll be releasing shortly. Um,
Hmm.
so, in fact, within the next month, we'll have two more out there. And
Okay.
we've got quite a few that we wrote, which we actually want to bring to AppSource. So we had a lot of PTEs that we built, and although we built them as we thought, hey, this is going to be something that people are going to need, they started off being a relatively small app, and we didn't really want to put it into AppSource because we didn't feel there was a strong enough case. But as those apps
Hmm.
have evolved and they've had their we've built them and grown them into solutions, we actually bringing them in. But two apps coming soon. It's an integration with Go Sweet Spot, which is an integrator for for couriers and that for Australia and New Zealand. And another app that we're bringing in is actually an app which we had it, and that's why we just continue to maintain it. It's master data synchronization. It's a very
Hmm.
lightweight master data synchronization tool. That's because there's quite a few options over there, and that kind of goes against the grain of what we want to do. We don't want to do an as to tool, but the
Yeah.
reality is we do have it, and we have a lot of people using it. So we prefer the deployment method being from AppSource rather than a PTE.
Okay.
But it's also very
So it's
simple.
for a distribution model as well. So AppSource can be used as redistribution.
Well,
So right, because
yes,
it's always easier for them to go and download from there, right?
that's right. I mean,
Yeah.
and keep their system up to date and have control of it. If it's a
Hmm.
PTE, I either have to. You can't distribute a runtime package to a cloud environment, and if I
Yeah.
distribute a normal app file, then I'm actually distributing my code. And
Yes.
as a Microsoft owns a platform. It's easy for them to share everything, but we don't. So if we share all of our IP, we just wouldn't be able to do that.
Yep. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. And that was great, Craig. We passed an hour. I'll wrap it up shortly. Thank
So,
you very much. And if anyone wants to know more about yourself, Theta, or 365 extensions, what is the best way of contacting you guys?
um, yeah, from AppSource, if you follow the links, you can access us, or you can go
Mhm.
onto our website, www.theta.co.nz. Um, and there's links to contact us there.
Yep. Yep. I'll also put the links under the episode description. Before we go, do you have anything to say, like any advice or any wishes to the community? Um,
Um,
is there anything you want to share?
Yeah, I think first of all, I reached out to you when I saw you started this podcast. I think it's a really great thing that you're doing. I like
Thank
the
you.
just your whole reasoning for why you wanted to start it and what started your journey, and then I think it's good, and I think it's just the right mindset that I think everyone in the Business Central, or should we say the Microsoft world, should actually have, is that we can actually we can all build the same things, but if we reuse things that have been built already, we actually end up delivering better solutions because those solutions get richer, and we can then focus in a niche where we're really good at, which is really what you said. So, but that is something I like to emphasize, that's what I think we should continue to do, is continue to um, not try and reinvent the world. Look at the 6,000 solutions that are there. There's a lot of people that have put a lot of hard work into those solutions. And at the end of the day, we're doing the customers a great service if we bring them something for next to nothing rather than reinvent the wheel for them.
I completely agree. That's 100%. And again, Craig, thank you very much for taking the time for doing this. Thank you for reaching out. Thank you for being part of the journey. I really, really appreciate it. I enjoyed our conversation as I always did. And thanks everyone for joining this session. And yeah, this is the end of the episode. Thanks for joining. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.